Right, so I was working with one of my athletes today. We were doing a goaltending session, and she's a little bit more experienced youth athlete, right? And I'm getting set up for the next exercise, and I'm being cheerful just because it's kind of how I am as a coach. And she jokingly says to me, "You need to be more negative. You know, you're such a cheerful, kind of happy guy. You need to be more negative." And she's joking, but I thought, well, hang on. Let's actually talk about that for a second, right? How would me being more negative as your coach help you? From the athlete's perspective, she's probably had coaches who have been harder on her before. You know, coaches who maybe criticize. How would me as your coach being more negative towards you, how would that help you? Being impatient, being maybe a little bit more critical. Depending on the athlete, maybe kind of adding some pressure, being a little bit harder on that person, it might motivate them to push a little bit farther, and you might see those results that you're looking for a little bit more with a little bit more intensity. Many athletes are used to coaches behaving in that way. Maybe she gets fingertips on the ball and it goes in the net. I could say to her, come on, you got to be reaching for that. You know that you should be stretching for that. I know you can reach that ball. We're going to just run if you don't want to be here. I could say something like that. How would that help the athlete? Taking that approach, it suggests that mistakes are poor in sport. Moreover, it suggests mistakes should be avoided at practice. They're bad. And that's a mentality that, whether you recognize it or not, will influence your gameplay, and you'll begin to play with more fear. You'll be fearful as you play. If I'm avoiding that happening, I'm not doing what I need to do to be successful. I'm doing what I need to do to not fail. And that's not going to ever benefit an athlete. You want your athletes to be playing to have fun and to be playing their best. They can't play the best that they can play, even if they're not aware of it. If their decision making is on the basis of, I am avoiding this outcome versus I'm seeking this outcome. You'll hear a lot of coaches that understand that part of it, that go, well, no, mistakes are a part of the game. And they'll say to you, mistakes are okay. Mistakes are meant to happen at practice because then they don't happen in the game. And I think we're moving in the right direction, but we're still missing something here. Mistakes are going to happen in the game. I don't call things mistakes like that, Even saying simply mistakes are okay still makes it sound like, it's a bad thing, but it's okay that it happens at practice. Like, I don't say mistakes are okay. Rather, I'd say mistakes are wonderful. And I wouldn't even call them again as I say mistakes. So if our goalkeeper jumps, reaches, misses the ball, the next one she jumps, reaches, fingertips on the ball. The next one she's going to get closer and closer and closer until she moves that ball outside the goalpost. And if I'm calling these mistakes, I'm not recognizing the fact that she's getting closer and closer and closer to the successful outcome. You're working hard at practice. We're working hard. We can work hard and laugh and be cheerful and have fun. We don't need to be critical to be high performance. And I think more players and more coaches are starting to realize that. They're starting to realize, I can be easier on myself and have more success. Oh, I can be easier on my players and they will have more success. Versus this misconception that high performance means high pressure, high stakes, and high accountability. Only accountability I ever need my athletes to do is just to do their best. I want to see you play in such a way that you're shooting for the successful outcomes. I think that's going to happen more consistently and more automatically in your games when the athlete is thinking and has trained that positive behavior because they're a cheerful, happy coach. When they're at practice, they're used to feeling that way themselves when they made those saves, when they had those successes, and even when they missed the ball. So when they're in the game, they're going to be more likely to be executing on that behavior. They're going to be able to play freely and be pursuing that feeling of joy that they get when they play the game. And at the end of the day, isn't that why we're here? When you reflect on how you speak to your athletes, how you speak to them in training, if they're doing their best, where I'm doing my best as their coach, we're off to a good start, and that's really all it comes down to.